Going to space is an extraordinary feat, but it can come with many hazards, one of which is severe bone loss or spaceflight osteopenia. Get a hold of this. Astronauts can lose 1 to 2% of their bone mass every month that they spend in space. An average mission length for an astronaut is 6 months. That's 6 to 12% of bone loss during just one mission trip. So why do astronauts lose bone mass in space? First, it's important to understand bone structure and the process of bone remodeling. Bones are usually thought of as these rigid, solid, unchangeable structures, but really they're living tissue that are constantly reshaping in order to adapt to the environment that they're in. They reshape through a process called bone remodeling, which is important for the reparation of bones. Bone remodeling can be divided into two main parts: resorption and ossification. In resorption, bone cells called osteoclasts break down bone tissue by secreting enzymes that eat away at the bone. This creates a hole in the bone known as Hauschup's lacuna. The osteoclasts use the nutrients and calcium from the bone and transport it to your bloodstream to be used throughout your body. In ossification, bone cells called osteoblasts create new bone tissue by laying down organic matrix, which is primarily composed of collagen, in the hole or lacuna created by the osteoclast. Bone loss occurs when osteoclasts break down more bone tissue than osteoblasts can create. There are two major types of bone: compact bone, which is the hard outer layer of bone, and cancellous bone, which is the spongy inner layer of bone. Cancellous bone structure can be thought similar to the structure of honeycomb. The trabecular structures in cancellous bone give it a honeycomb look. When bones lose their density, the bone's trabecular structures weakens and becomes thin. We can visualize this as if the walls of honeycomb structures becomes weak and thin too. Why does the microgravity environment affect an astronaut's bones in space? Gravity on Earth allows a constant mechanical force to be put on our bodies. This allows our bones to adapt to this force and maintain a healthy density. Without gravity, our bones do not need to keep the same density in order to function. Therefore, it starts to lose its mass. Why doesn't bone density stay the same? This is a good question that many scientists are still trying to solve. For unknown reasons, in a microgravity environment, less osteoblast cells and more osteoclast cells are created. So more bone-destroying cells than bone-creating cells lead to bone loss. Scientists don't know whether this bone loss in the microgravity environment will plateau or continue forever until, theoretically, the bones dissolve into nothing. Astronauts try to combat the loss of bone mass by exercising 2 hours a day while they're in space. That sounds like a lot. But while this does help slow down the process of bone loss in space, it doesn't completely solve the problem altogether. This problem is very dangerous, as it can make astronauts more susceptible to fractures and injury. In order to advance in space exploration and be able to stay in space for longer periods of time, it is very important to solve this problem. We don't want to turn into human blobs.